I always thought being a nurse would be the hardest part of my life. The double shifts, the heartbreak, the constant motion. I could handle all that. But nothing prepared me for the guilt I'd carry after trusting the wrong people with the one thing that mattered most. My daughter, Olivia. I had Olivia when I was 26. Her father left before she was even born, and I've never chased him down. He made his choice, and I made mine. We were going to be okay. For the first few years, I juggled night classes and diapers. Then I landed a job as an RN at a hospital just outside our town. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave Olivia a stable life. But things changed when I had to start picking up overtime shifts to cover a stretch of unexpected medical debt. My own hospital bills, ironically. That's when my mother, Catherine, offered to help. Let her stay here during the week, she said. It'll be easier than daycare. Plus, she'll get to spend time with Tyler and Madison. Tyler and Madison are my sister Hannah's kids, 11 and 9. On the surface, it sounded perfect. My mom had the space. Hannah was around a lot. And Olivia would be with family. What could go wrong? The first few weeks seemed fine. Olivia would come home on weekends and tell me about playing tag with Madison and building Lego castles with Tyler. I missed her like hell during the week, but seeing her smile on Fridays made it bearable, at least at first. But then I noticed little changes. Olivia got quiet. Her drawings, once full of bright skies and animals, turned dark. She started waking up from nightmares, clutching my arm, whispering, "Don't make me go back." At first, I thought it was just the adjustment. Maybe she missed me too much. But every time I asked her what was wrong, she'd just say, "Nothing." I brought it up with my mom. Catherine waved me off. "She's sensitive. You coddle her too much," she said, rolling her eyes. "She needs structure." Hannah echoed her. Tyler and Madison are just energetic. Olivia's a bit dramatic. I wanted to believe them. I needed to believe them. I was barely holding it together between long hours and the crushing pressure to be everything for Olivia. So I convinced myself they were right. But then Olivia started begging not to go back on Sunday nights. Crying, clinging to my hand. "Please, Mommy, I'll be good. I'll clean my room. Don't take me there." The guilt tore through me, but I kept pushing it down. I told myself it was temporary. Just until I cleared some debt. Just until I could breathe. One night, after a 14-hour shift, I picked Olivia up early because Hannah had an appointment. Olivia's face was flushed, her eyes red. When I asked if she'd been crying, she looked at the floor and said, "I spilled milk." Grandma got mad. I found out later it wasn't just spilled milk. Catherine had screamed at her in front of the cousins, called her useless, and made her scrub the floor until her knees were raw. And the worst part? Olivia still didn't tell me the whole story. That's how far gone she already was. 8 years old, and already learning to protect the people who hurt her. The more I tried to rationalize what was happening, the worse it got. Every Sunday night, Olivia's tears became harder to ignore. She'd fake stomach aches, hide her shoes, even beg to come to work with me. And every time I looked into her pleading eyes, I heard my mother's voice in my head. "You're too soft on her. That girl needs to toughen up." But Olivia wasn't soft. She was hurting. I started noticing strange things when I dropped her off. Tyler and Madison, once sweet kids, had developed this smug, condescending way of speaking to her. "Oh look, the little maid is here," Tyler muttered once, under his breath. Catherine just laughed like it was nothing. When I confronted Hannah, she brushed it off. "They're just teasing. It's how kids play. Olivia needs to grow a thicker skin." "She's 8, I snapped. "She's not your built-in punching bag. She's just dramatic, Megan. Honestly, you've always treated her like porcelain." That word again, dramatic. Like Olivia was inventing the welts on her hands from scrubbing dishes. Like her quiet sobs in the car were some kind of manipulative act. But I wasn't ready to believe my own family could be that cruel. Then one weekend, I noticed bruises, faint, finger-shaped marks on Olivia's upper arm. She tried to hide them, said she tripped. But when I gently pressed, she admitted Madison had grabbed her too hard during a game. "But it's okay," she added quickly. "I didn't cry." I froze. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. Olivia was trying to prove her worth by not crying. Like her pain was a test she had to pass. I wanted to pull her out that day. I almost did. But the bills were still stacking up, and I'd just committed to another 2-month stretch of overtime. I made a promise to myself, one more pay cycle. Then I'd cut back hours and bring Olivia home full-time. That promise came too late. The next week, Olivia started calling me from Catherine's house. Whispered calls from the hallway or the bathroom. Grandma says I don't help enough, she said once. Today, she said lazy kids don't deserve dinner. Did she not feed you? I asked, stunned. She said I could eat after I cleaned the garage, but I couldn't lift the boxes. She got mad. I called Catherine immediately. She laughed it off, of course. Said Olivia was acting out and trying to turn me against her. Megan, you're so gullible, she scoffed. You don't know how to raise a kid. I'm teaching her discipline, something you clearly lack. I should have yanked Olivia out right then, but I didn't. I let my fear of failing, of losing my job, of being alone, override what I knew in my gut. One night, I picked Olivia up and found her scrubbing mud off the back porch in the dark. Her knees were scraped, and she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Catherine stood behind her, arms crossed. She lied about finishing her chores, she said. Maybe next time she'll learn. I carried Olivia to the car that night. She didn't say a word the whole ride home. Just stared out the window, her little hands trembling in her lap. I didn't sleep at all. Something was happening behind those walls, something that went beyond strict parenting or tough love. Something darker. And soon, it would all come to a head in the worst way imaginable. The week it all came crashing down started like any other. I dropped Olivia off Monday morning before my shift. She didn't cry this time. She didn't say much of anything. Just climbed out of the car with her little backpack slung over her shoulder, head down, and walked up to Catherine's porch like a soldier reporting for duty. Something about her silence chilled me more than her tears ever had. That night, I worked a double shift. I didn't get home until after midnight. I'd planned to call and check in, but the hours slipped away, and I was so exhausted I passed out in my scrubs. Tuesday morning, I woke to a missed call from Hannah and a text from my mom that simply read, "Handled the situation. Don't undermine me." No context. No explanation. I immediately tried calling. No one answered. My stomach dropped. I called Olivia's phone. It rang out. I left work early and drove straight to Catherine's. When I got there, Olivia wasn't in sight. Catherine was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. "Where's Olivia?" I asked, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. "In her room," she said flatly. "Don't worry. We had a little disciplinary issue yesterday. She's fine now." "What kind of issue?" I demanded. She gave me that smirk I'd grown to hate, condescending, cold. She refused to clean the garage. Claimed it was too heavy. Started crying. So I told her, if she wanted to act like a stray, she could live like one. I blinked. "What does that mean?" "I put her out," she said, not even flinching. "She needed to learn." "You, what?" "You kicked an 8-year-old out of the house." "She was being disobedient, Megan. She needs consequences. Something you clearly don't believe in." I ran upstairs, shouting Olivia's name. Her room was empty. That's when the panic hit full force. I searched the yard, the garage, the basement. Nothing. Catherine, somehow, still looked unbothered. "I told her to come back when she was ready to behave," she said, shrugging. "She'll turn up." But she didn't. An hour later, I filed a missing person report. I've never experienced fear like that in my life, cold, suffocating terror. I pictured Olivia lost in the woods, kidnapped, hit by a car. And underneath it all was a howl of guilt I couldn't shut off. This was my fault. I left her there. Police searched the area. We combed the neighborhood. I was out of my mind, barely able to function. Then, 6 hours later, an officer found her. She was hiding in the neighbor's unlocked shed, curled up under a moldy tarp, shivering, covered in dirt, her lips cracked from thirst. She hadn't run away. She'd been cast out like garbage. When I reached her, she flinched. Actually flinched when I touched her shoulder. "Mommy," she whispered, like she wasn't sure I was real. "Am I in trouble?" I broke in that moment. I picked her up, held her tight, and swore she'd never go back there. Ever again. The officer pulled me aside and said, "We're obligated to notify CPS. This is going to be an investigation now." I nodded. I wanted it. I wanted them to see what I hadn't. What I refused to see. The drive home was silent. Olivia sat in the back seat, clutching a ratty blanket she'd found in the shed, rocking slightly. That night, I sat beside her bed until she fell asleep. I watched her face twitch with nightmares and promised myself 2 things. 1. I would do whatever it took to protect her from now on. 2. My mother and sister were never going to touch her again. The next morning, Olivia wouldn't get out of bed. She flinched at sudden noises and jumped if I raised my voice even slightly. I let her sleep in and called the hospital to take a leave of absence, unsure how I'd cover the bills, but certain nothing mattered more than being with her. A social worker from Child Protective Services came by that afternoon. She was kind but methodical, jotting down everything while Olivia hid behind me, barely speaking above a whisper. When the social worker asked about what happened at Catherine's house, Olivia's eyes darted to mine. She shook her head, lips trembling, and buried her face in my shirt. Later, as I helped Olivia into the bath, I noticed just how thin her arms and legs had gotten. There were fading bruises on her shins and patches of raw skin on her hands, evidence of scrubbing, just as she'd described. The water turned gray as the dirt from the shed came off her skin. Afterward, she finally spoke in broken, halting sentences. Grandma said, "Lazy kids don't deserve dinner." She said I was bad. And Hannah told Tyler to watch me, to make sure I finished cleaning or else I'd get in trouble again. I tried not to cry. I needed to be strong for her. That evening, CPS called to inform me that Olivia would not be returning to Catherine's house while the investigation was ongoing. The relief was overwhelming, but the guilt gnawed at me. How had I not seen it? How many times had Olivia tried to tell me, only for me to brush it off or believe the adults who should have protected her? The following days were a blur of interviews, phone calls, and sleepless nights. CPS questioned Catherine and Hannah, who both played the same card. Olivia was manipulative, spoiled, difficult. They insisted she made up stories for attention. But the physical evidence told another tale. The hospital records, bruises, malnutrition, anxiety spoke volumes. The social worker also found text messages on Olivia's tablet. Tyler and Madison had sent her cruel messages, calling her maid and loser. Worse, Hannah's texts to her mother included phrases like, "Don't let Megan's brat slack off. Make her pull her weight." It was all documented and added to the CPS file. Therapists started working with Olivia. She barely spoke at first, but when they asked her to draw her family, she drew herself standing alone in the corner, while the rest of the family stood together on the other side of the page. My chest ached seeing that picture. Meanwhile, rumors began to swirl among extended relatives. Catherine called my aunt and uncle, spinning the narrative that I was overreacting, that Olivia was just acting out. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family, some supporting me, others asking why I was trying to ruin my mother's reputation. I ignored them all. Olivia needed me, not their opinions. One night, after a long therapy session, Olivia whispered, "You believe me, right?" I hugged her tight and promised her, over and over again, that I believed every word, and that I'd never, ever send her back to that house. But the process was just beginning. CPS launched a formal investigation, and my lawyer encouraged me to consider a civil suit. "This isn't just neglect," she said. "It's systematic, intentional abuse." I was terrified. But looking at Olivia, how fragile she'd become, I knew I had to see it through. Filing the civil lawsuit against my own mother and sister felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. The paperwork alone was overwhelming, but the emotional toll was even heavier. I worried every day, what if the court believed Catherine and Hannah's lies? What if Olivia was forced to relive everything in front of strangers? But I also knew, without consequences, they'd hurt someone else. Maybe even Madison or Tyler, if things ever turned against them. Therapy became the anchor in our lives. Olivia's therapist, Dr. Jen, met with her 3 times a week. The first sessions were all play and silence, but after a few visits, Olivia began to open up. She spoke in whispers at first, her voice shaking. She described how Catherine would assign her endless chores, make her clean up after her cousins, and punish her by taking away meals. She remembered Hannah telling Tyler and Madison to keep her in line and to show her what happens to bad girls. The things Olivia shared in therapy gutted me. She told Dr. Jen about being locked in a closet once for losing her attitude, about Madison dumping a cup of water on her head and laughing, and about how Grandma would scold her for crying, saying, "Only babies cry, are you a baby, Olivia?" She talked about how she stopped asking for help because she knew no one would listen. All of it was documented. Dr. Jen worked closely with the CPS investigator, who added every detail to the official case file. I was interviewed multiple times. They asked about every red flag, every moment I could remember. The shame of not acting sooner never left me. And then the evidence started piling up. First, text messages. When CPS subpoenaed Hannah and Catherine's phones, they found dozens of messages mocking Olivia, complaints about her being lazy or soft, and even explicit instructions from Hannah. If she doesn't listen, just lock her in the laundry room. Worked for Madison. There were photos sent between them of Olivia doing chores, often looking exhausted or in tears. Second, Statements from neighbors. One neighbor told investigators she'd seen Olivia outside alone for hours, cleaning the porch or the yard, even in the cold. Another recalled seeing Catherine scold Olivia so harshly the girl shrunk into herself. Even the cousin's classmates started talking. A teacher reported that Tyler had bragged about making Olivia cry, saying, "My grandma says she deserves it." All of it painted a devastating picture, one that even the most skeptical observer couldn't ignore. During the pretrial process, Catherine and Hannah showed no remorse. They stuck to their script, that Olivia was a problem child, that I was unfit and overworked, that this was all a ploy for attention or money. Their lawyers tried to dig up dirt on me, anything to shift the blame. But the facts were too strong. Meanwhile, Olivia slowly began to trust again. She started sleeping through the night. She smiled when we watched movies together. She even laughed, a real, full-bellied laugh, the first time we baked cookies and I let her eat the dough straight from the bowl. We still had a long road ahead, but for the first time, I believed we could make it. As the lawsuit moved forward, my lawyer told me there was enough evidence to seek a restraining order, financial damages, and most important, public accountability. I knew we couldn't erase what had happened, but I wanted the world to know Olivia was not the problem, and I would fight for her, no matter what it cost. The day of the hearing arrived like a storm I couldn't outrun. I dressed Olivia in her favorite blue sweater and sat with her in the waiting room, holding her small hand. My own hand shook. I'd never imagined taking my family to court, never pictured myself sitting across from my mother and sister with lawyers and officials watching every move. Catherine looked defiant as ever, refusing to meet my eyes. Hannah barely glanced at me. They sat together, whispering, as if they were the victims in all this. The judge listened carefully as my attorney presented the evidence, CPS reports, therapy notes, the photos, the cruel texts. The courtroom grew silent when Olivia's therapist described her trauma, the nightmares, the panic attacks, the way she'd flinch at sudden movements or loud voices. Dr. Jen explained how Olivia's symptoms matched those of chronic psychological abuse. Her sense of safety was shattered, she said quietly. She believed she was unlovable. That is the most damaging thing you can do to a child. I'll never forget the moment they showed a series of texts. "Hannah, she doesn't learn. Don't let her eat until she finishes the garage. Catherine, maybe I'll leave her outside tonight. See how she likes it." Even the judge's face hardened reading those words. Several neighbors submitted written testimony. One described seeing Olivia outside, shivering in thin clothes, scrubbing steps until her fingers bled. Another said Catherine told her, "Megan's brat needs to learn her place." It was all so public now, no more secrets, no more pretending. Catherine's lawyer tried to twist it all, suggesting Olivia was just a difficult child, that Megan exaggerated, that family discipline was being criminalized. But the evidence was too overwhelming. The judge saw through it. After days of testimony, the court granted an immediate restraining order against both Catherine and Hannah. They were barred from contacting me or Olivia in any way. The judge called their actions systematic, intentional, and cruel. I felt something inside me unclench for the first time in months. Financially, the lawsuit resulted in a settlement. It wasn't about the money. I would have given up every penny just to keep Olivia safe, but the court ordered Catherine to pay for Olivia's therapy, legal fees, and punitive damages. Hannah's visitation with her own children was put under review by CPS. The news spread quickly through our extended family. Some called to apologize. Others, still loyal to Catherine, accused me of being vindictive. I stopped answering their calls. But the biggest change happened at home. With the case over, I could focus on Olivia's healing. She spent her days in therapy, slowly finding her voice. Dr. Jen encouraged us to do family sessions where Olivia practiced saying no and "I'm scared" without fear. The progress was slow, but real. Olivia's laughter returned, hesitant at first, then bright and easy. She stopped flinching when I reached for her hand. She started drawing again. This time, she drew us together, standing on the same side of the page. Sometimes, I caught myself staring at her in awe. She'd been through hell and survived. She was the bravest person I knew. For the first time since all this began, I could finally see a future for us, a life free of fear, surrounded by people who truly loved us. The weeks after the court ruling felt strangely quiet, like the whole world had taken a deep breath and let it out. There were still moments when Olivia would wake up from a nightmare, or when she'd freeze at a loud knock on the door. But little by little, the tension in our home began to fade. We leaned into therapy. Dr. Jen encouraged us to build new routines, gentle, predictable, loving. Mornings were slower now, filled with sleepy hugs and silly breakfasts. I let Olivia pick her clothes for school and reminded her every single day, "You're safe. You're loved. You don't have to earn it." She began to open up more with her new friends, joining an art club at school. One afternoon, she came home beaming, clutching a drawing of herself surrounded by a group of kids and a smiling adult with brown hair. Me. It's still taped to our fridge. As word spread, the extended family divided. Some relatives quietly unfollowed us on social media. Others sent awkward apologies or angry accusations. But a few reached out with real remorse, telling me they'd believed Catherine for years, never realizing how much she twisted the truth. I let most of it go. I was done explaining, done begging anyone to believe my daughter. Hannah lost primary custody of Tyler and Madison. They were placed temporarily with their father while CPS monitored the home. I heard, through mutual acquaintances, that Madison had started therapy herself. It hurt, knowing my niece was struggling, but I also hoped this was the beginning of something better for her too. I went back to work at the hospital, but only part-time now. My priorities had changed. I made sure every weekend belonged to Olivia. We'd go to the park, get ice cream, sometimes just curl up and watch old cartoons together. I caught myself watching her when she laughed, as if trying to memorize the sound, terrified I'd ever lose her joy again. One night, after her bath, Olivia turned to me and whispered, "Do you think I'm really brave?" I pulled her close, fighting back tears, and told her the truth. "You're the bravest person I've ever known. You taught me how to fight for what matters." Therapy, time, and unconditional love did their slow, patient work. Olivia started sleeping through the night. She began inviting friends over, her laughter echoing down the hallway. I saw glimpses of the little girl she'd been before all this, but also a new strength, a kind of wisdom I wish she'd never needed. The settlement money covered her therapy and set up a savings account for her future. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom or the bank. It was in the way Olivia stood taller, the way she spoke up for herself, the way she trusted me again. I no longer cared about the family we lost. I cared about the family we chose. Friends from work became our circle, showing up for us in ways my own blood never did. Our little apartment was filled with warmth, laughter, and safety. As I tucked Olivia in one night, she squeezed my hand and said, "You never gave up on me." I kissed her forehead and whispered, "Never. That's what real family does."